I just want to start by thanking our hosts in Morocco for what has been an amazing experience thus far. When the earthquake happened, everybody went through the doubts that we all went through. But not only has the Moroccan government done a good job of dealing with their own situation on the ground, the tragedies they're dealing with, but they've also been amazingly helpful in helping us get all this set up, and our amazing hosts. And I've had a chance to visit a damaged school in the Atlas Mountains and see their work firsthand. And for those of you who would like to know a little bit more about it, either get a chance to go see it yourself or catch up with me, and I'll tell you the kind of things we saw. But it's just, to start with, I want to thank them. It is correct that close to half of our volume of lending goes into the African continent. It is also correct that this is after 50 years, I believe, that the annual meetings are being held on the soil of Africa. My belief is that the level of growth of population in Africa over the coming years and the opportunities that Africa represents, therefore, for world growth are second to none. The question really is, how do we surmount the unbelievable challenges that exist on the ground in Africa to enable that to become something more? And that includes everything from very simple things that people outside don't understand, but those of you who live here do. The ability to transport goods across African borders within Africa is unbelievably complicated. It is cheaper to take something from an African country to a completely distant offshore port to bring it back to an African country than it is to move that produce or that product from one African country to the other across their own borders on the continent. That has everything to do with logistics, but also to do with the simplicity of documentation across borders. There's so much work to be done on that. There is the African Free Trade Commission that the Banque is an active supporter of. I've said this to African finance ministers. I believe this topic deserves much more attention. You cannot solve it for the continent as a whole, but you can solve it by starting by smaller regions in the continent, looking at how you can promote intra-regional trade in Africa. Just one example, to create jobs for young people. There are other issues to do from the basics of education and healthcare, including skilling institutes as the children grow, so they get a chance to be skilled appropriately for the kind of jobs that could be created in that country. That's another thing to be done. In the middle of all this is the challenges of climate and pandemics. And climate, as we talked a little bit at the beginning, so I won't repeat that. Pandemics, it's not just the access to vaccines that we all unfortunately saw firsthand during the COVID situation. I believe the correct long-term answer for access to medication and devices in Africa is for making those things in Africa for Africa. You need the technology and the partnerships of generic manufacturers and device manufacturers and other pharma companies to come in here. I have found great encouragement among the pharmaceutical companies to be a part of this. Your own country has an amazing entrepreneur, a lady whom I met day before yesterday, who has 3 pharmaceutical factories, generics, on the ground here, and is looking to set up a 4th in another country close by. And if people like her and others whom I've met could be encouraged to do this, you would solve some of the supply chain challenges that we saw in the past pandemic, and we all know the next one will come one day. The question is when. And we should not be caught in the same circumstance. So there's many parts to your question. What I'm trying to get across is that it needs local thinking, local cooperation, intra-regional thinking as well, not just multilateral money. We can be helpful. We can be helpful with our knowledge, which is very valuable, which we do with a lot of countries. Your own country is a great partner for us in different development plans over the years, including your new development plan that you're going through right now. In fact, I'm glad you raised that. That's one of the topics I was discussing with your Prime Minister over the last, I think a couple of days ago, that as part of this new development plan, the effort that's going into human capital and job creation is quite important. Like I said, young people in the global south, that is what we have to do, create jobs for them. You're not going to create jobs from the top. You have to start from the right education and the right skilling institutes, and then create the right environment for businesses, entrepreneurs, and the like to flourish. And we've discussed a number of interesting ideas with him, which are in the plan. We've been very helpful in the past with schools, We're trying to expand not just that, but go to higher education and skilling institutes with Morocco and partner with them and other countries like that on this space. I've visited skilling institutes in a number of countries now that the bank is running. I believe that the most important thing the bank can do is not just be a money bank, but be a knowledge bank. And the knowledge bank idea is to have the right policies, the right regulations, the right principles in place to create the right foundations at which money then can be put to use to help deliver that growth. We've got a lot of people who do that. They're very talented. They write about a number of topics in the world. I want to get them to focus on the country strategic partnership frameworks that we draw up with every country, including with Morocco, and get the knowledge that they have put into that framework so the right priorities are agreed on day one for the next 3 years. And then the money goes into those. When you create the right way of thinking, which Morocco has done with us well over the last few years, I think you can get much further than not having the clear principles agreed right up front. So the bank can be very helpful in knowledge. We're trying to construct our knowledge bank on 5 verticals: people, prosperity, planet, infrastructure, and digital. People is education, health, social transfer programs. Prosperity is jobs and access to credit for MSMEs and others, as well as trade and economic policy. Planet is mitigation, adaptation, biodiversity, water use, forest, infrastructure everyone knows, and digital because it's impacting everything from governance to inclusion.